oak is very heavy. I initially wanted to build a bed like this, but after pricing and weighing everything out, I decided against it. The headboard would have weighed something like 100 pounds. So, man, the price of oak is pretty significant. So I went with something smaller. I have a pretty small shop and a very large saw, so I break down most of my materials here on the sliding table saw. Here I'm cutting a straight edge with it. And after joining, getting a straight edge, I'm planing it. It's time to upgrade the planer. You can see at the end there the board getting stuck and sniping the back pretty bad. This is why it's good to have a long joiner. I mean, really, it's hard to joint anything longer than your joiner bed. The legs I want to give a little extra thickness, and I didn't have any 8/4 wood, so I'm just gluing some boards together to get thicker legs. On a glue up like this especially, you really want a lot of glue. And a lot of clamps. On the final cross cut of these legs, you can see I have tape around the edge, and also there is a push block on the end, and that's to prevent tear out. And this is something I've been doing more and more. I use my planer to get things to final thickness if I can. This is my new dust collection setup. It's the same dust collector I had, but with a Dust Deputy, Dust Cyclone, whatever they're called, an extra stage to my filtration. I was getting a lot of clogs, and this has really helped a lot. I didn't get any clogs. I would usually, if I was when I was planing, I would clog up the dust collector a lot, and yeah, so that Dust Cyclone helped. Here I am cutting with the laser the templates and marking my legs, the parts I want to cut out. So I'm getting the shape of the legs with this template. And so I'm cutting some on the inside of the legs, and then the curve on the outside of the leg, I just chose a final width I want at the top, and I'm just drawing a line from the top to bottom with that length. Now, while everything's still square, before I put any cuts in the legs, I'm gonna cut my mortises. It's a lot easier at this point than with the legs curved. I put a round over in the spots I'm not going to be able to get to when the bed's put together. And here I'm cutting the rough shape of the legs. I should have cut a lot more at this point. So these legs are close to 1.5 inches thick. Here's kind of a mistake I made, is I'm using like a bit to try to shape these legs, and it's just way too much material. It's very difficult to cut, and actually I get a lot of tear out this way. You can see it right there in the leg. And now I'm trying guide bushing, and that helped a little bit. Actually, I'm cutting, halfway up the leg at a time, and then the other half, and that helped. But if I was going to do this all again, I would have cut a lot more with the bandsaw and cleaned everything up with the sander and just skip the router altogether. I think this was a bad idea. Also, the order. I shouldn't have really cut these inside pieces until the, more of the bed was put together. And this really is what I should have used instead of the router. You're not going to get all those burn marks you see everywhere that were very difficult to sand. I thought if I did some sanding before I assembled the headboard, it would help, but I ended up having to do a ton of sanding at the end anyways. You can see I've got like a little piece of 1/4-inch wood down by the clamps. I found that if the clamps touch the wood, sometimes you get weird marks. So I like to put things between the wood and the clamps. And what I don't show in the video is after I got everything clamped up, I actually unclamped everything and I cleaned it up, cleaned all the glue. And here I'm just using a chisel to kind of get those joints, the parts where they join together, to get them flush. Here I have another template for the bed mounting hardware. I cut that on the laser. This bed mounting hardware, it's not the easiest thing to install. You have to, well, the way I do it is I route out the bulk of the material with a router. Then you have to chisel everything flush, reroute. There's a lot of room for error at this point, so I don't know if I could recommend it. I do think it's the best looking bed hardware, though no one's really going to see it but you. You don't see it here, but there's a lot of cutting and checking and cutting and checking. And then once you get that piece fit, you have to cut a spot for the mating hardware to fit in. So again, it's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. I had to spend a lot of time sanding. I had a lot of burn marks. A lot of parts didn't meet right. I always clean everything with mineral spirits before I put a finish on. I don't show the finish I use, but this is generally what I use. I'll put down an oil. I don't remember what oil this is, and then I cover it with shellac. It's the first time assembling everything, make sure it fits. I'm just cutting some pieces to hold the bed slats on. Pre-drilling some holes and screw those to the sides of the bed rails. There you have it. I ended up making the Moonfry bed. When I started designing the bed, it actually ended up pretty close to the Moonfry bed. And I was looking online at pictures and I came upon that design, and the Four Eyes bed just solved a lot of problems I was having, and I ended up making that. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.